Welcome to day 23 of the New Way. I will read Matthew 2, 1 through 12. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. You've heard this story, or have you? How much of your knowledge is Bible-based and how much is fictional? We'll see. First off, we don't really know who these men were. Some call them kings. Some call them magi. Some call them wise men. All we know for sure is that they were astrologers who had been given wisdom to understand that this star represented a new king in Israel and that he was worthy of their worship. How many? From what country? Did they ride camels? How long and far had they traveled? What race of people were they? Did they arrive on January 6th? Were they accompanied by a royal concierge? Sorry, but the Bible doesn't tell us. So let's look at what the Bible does tell us. We know that they came from the east, and they arrived in Jerusalem. Jerusalem was the center for Jewish worship, and that's where King Herod's palace was. So it was the most likely place to find a baby king. Jerusalem was a very busy city. Note that whoever they were, or whatever the size of their company, it made a stir in Jerusalem. So we must assume it was more than just a few men. But there we go. That's an assumption again. We don't know if they went to Herod's palace to ask their questions, but we do know that when Herod heard that they were asking questions about a new king, he sent for them. We also know that Herod sent for his spiritual advisors, and they quoted the prophet Micah and told him that the new king would be born in Bethlehem. When Herod sent for the wise men, he asked when the star had appeared. He also asked them to let him know when they found him, so that he too could worship. Ha! the wise men traveled to Bethlehem. Note that the text plainly states that this was a house, not a stable or a cave, and Jesus was probably not wrapped in swaddling clothes, since Matthew calls him a child, not a baby. We do know that he was less than 2 years old. We'll talk about that next time. The wise men found him because of the star that shone over the house. The wise men worshiped Jesus and brought him gifts. We don't know how many gifts, but we do know what 3 of them were. They were gold, which Joseph would need to raise Jesus; frankincense, which symbolized royalty and was used as a perfume or an incense; and myrrh, which was another perfume, but it was used for anointing a body for burial. Strange gifts for a baby, don't you think? But very significant. Is this foreshadowing something? How did God communicate with the wise men? I'll read Matthew 1:12 again. It says, "And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route." We've been asking the question, what would have happened if someone disobeyed God? And so far the answer has been they would have missed out on tremendous blessings. But as we think about what God told the wise men to do, what do you think the consequences of their disobedience would have been? I think it's serious business to disobey God. Don't you? I'm glad they chose to obey. In his service, Dale.